how do you guys choose to relieve stress in your stressed out times? For me personally, I do ceramics. If those of you who don't know what that is, it's art with clay. And the reason I like ceramics is because you can change the clay into any kind of form and you can make it into any kind of color. The first stage is just plain clay, and then you make your form, and then you put it inside the kiln, which is like an oven for clay, and then it turns into this kind of, I wouldn't say glass yet, but it turns into this hard stone, and then we use special kinds of paint that make it turn into glass when you fire it. So like your guys' plates at home, a lot of those really are made out of clay. And the paints are called underglaze and high fired. My favorite is high fired because it makes them into colors that you don't typically see every single day. And that is the way that I relieve my stress. So the first thing in ceramics is there's usually like a step that you would go by in order to make good artwork. And the first thing that I say is putting yourself into your artwork. So you're not trying to make a replica of anybody else's work, you're making your own. So when we have projects in our class, our teacher typically tells us to relate it to ourselves, in our home, in our background, and just make it. Right now we're doing a project where we're making a special building that we maybe grew up next to or passed by. So I'm doing like my backyard in my house, of my old house. So that's how it relates back to me, and that's what I recommend for the first step in making good artwork in ceramics. And the second thing I recommend is taking your time and not rushing things. In our class we do have deadlines sometimes, but if I don't meet those deadlines, then I'll come in before school or after school or any time that I can make up the work, so I'm not rushing my work, because then when you rush your work it makes anything sloppy, and that's with anything, not just ceramics. And lastly, I think it's important to be confident about your work. A lot of times I'm not really confident about the things I make, but when we end up at the end of our project going around the room and talking about everything, we reflect on our mistakes and what we can do better. And so that way, if you are confident in your mistakes as well as what you did good, and then in your future projects, you should be able to fix that so you can really make what you want. And those are the 3 things that I do to help myself make good artwork, and I recommend doing those things as well if you're looking to relieve stress using art, not necessarily ceramics. You can really do it with anything. We don't just use clay and ceramics, like we make other things. Like right now in our project we're using wood and metal, so you can also make art out of that. It's a little bit more difficult, but you can do it, and I believe that you can really make something good if you use those 3 steps in your artwork.
Okay.